Hi, I'm Jonathan Weinberg, and this is Drawing with Fountain Pens. If you follow my channel, you know that I'm a big admirer of Schon and Schon DSGN. Over the years, I've interviewed him twice, actually, and recently interviewed him at the DC Pen Show. Over the last year, I've been collecting several of his pens, actually getting some of them on eBay. A few of them came in with a whole bunch of pens that I got, and I have to say they really, for me, these pens are works of art. They are just beautiful to look at. Truthfully, they're not particularly special in terms of the way they write or the way they draw. I just love the way they look as objects, and they function very well. The ones that I have all have Jovo nibs, and I think Jovo nibs are fine. I think I think all of them have medium Jovo nibs in them. But it's really the material and the way they look and the way they feel in the hand that I think is so marvelous. They really don't look like other people's fountain pens, and they have a wonderful, I think, modern contemporary look. Particularly the way the pocket stick pens are anodized, which is a process where they take the aluminum and they dip it in acid and they use electricity and in mysterious ways are able to color it. I also recently was able to get one that is faceted. So it's not I don't have a huge collection, but I thought it would be fun just to show you the pens that I have and sort of talk in general about pocket pens. Schon DSGN has not been around that long. It begins in 2019, and the first pen that they produce is the Pocket 6. I'm not sure how early this one is. I got it with a bunch of other pens. It's the brass model. And what's interesting about this particular version is that it has this faceted section, which I actually really like. But the original version of it, as I understand, would have been plain. It's nice about the faceted section is it gives you a nice hold on the pen. It's a heavy pen. I think you can say that its inspiration, and really the company that is best known for doing pocket pens is, of course, Kaweco. And here is one of the Kaweco Sport brass versions. This is a pen that really goes back all the way back to the 1930s, as I understand it. This is a modern version, quite heavy pen, and you can see, particularly when you take it out and you look at the body of the pen, how similar they are, I think. With one major difference. The reason the title of the Schon pen is called, of Ian Schon's pen is called the Pocket 6, is because it uses a standard pocket, number 6 nib, which Jovo makes, a German nib. They do have the option of getting a section so you can put a Bach nib on it if you want to, but that costs extra. Here, in this version with the faceted cover here, section, the nib is partially covered. If we look at this version, the aluminum version, we see with the standard section, the nib is not covered that way. And I think the pen looks better, actually, in this mode than it does in this mode, even though this is more comfortable. And it doesn't really affect the way the pen writes when you have the faceted element. Now, I would say that in comparison to the Kaweco pen, having the larger nib really does help. I think it writes much better. However, the pen is limited by the fact that whatever nib you have in it, and the Jovo nibs I think are fine. They're great for writing and journaling. They're not the greatest nibs for drawing with. I mean, they work perfectly well, but they don't have any flex to them. They come in all kinds of different sizes, stubs and broad and extra fine. I think almost all my Schon pens have medium nibs. One of the exciting things about Schon Design is they've been experimenting and creating their own nib, the Monarch nib. I did a review when that Monarch nib first came out, and now I did a little interview with Ian Schon from the DC Pen Show, where he introduces a whole new pen, Evo, I think it's called, Monarch pen, and which is extremely expensive, but that has to do with all the expense that it costs to create your own nib. This is something that small pen companies really are usually, and even big pen companies really have trouble doing, which is they can make their bodies of the pen, but to produce nibs is a whole other process and takes other kinds of machinery. So you really have companies like Lamy or Parker, really big companies that make their own nibs. The smaller companies that by and large use Bach or Jovo nibs, and Schon Design is now trying to create, or is creating, their own nibs, but they're quite expensive, but beautiful. I gave quite a favorable review to the Monarch nib. So these pens, I would say, one of the things to say about them is that they write well. They're all metal, and so I find them a bit slippery. They're not my favorite pens for writing, but they are among my favorite pens in terms of the way they look. When you get a Schon Design pen, it comes in this very simple but very nicely designed packaging that holds the pen very securely. I think this does a really great job, and yet doesn't take a big hit on the environment. And I think that's typical of them, the way they really carefully think through solutions. In the last few months, I've gotten a few more of these pens. I'm particularly excited by the faceted one. This one is more expensive. I had this one, came in a group of pens a year ago, and you'll notice that it has what they call a faceted section. And when they anodize these pens, that's why they get these incredible colors, they dip them in acid. They really only are going to do that with the standard section that's in the same material. So you can see here, this was all dipped at the same time. This pen, the section wasn't dipped, and so that's why it looks so different. The material is really beautiful, even take on a bit of the character of the person as you use them. They have a kind of patina. That's particularly true of the brass version of the pen, which really has, when this was first bought, it would have been very shiny, and now it has changed color, but I really like that. I suppose I could shine it up, but I like the way it changes color and becomes sort of part of the history of the person that is using the pen. This is a very heavy pen, or a much heavier pen, if you like that. The aluminum is lighter, and I think that helps with the slipperiness of the pen. I think it works better, actually, when it's lighter. I have two other really pretty versions. This is blue. Now, since I got these pens used, I don't know the names of the particular colors of the pen. They have interesting names. They're done in limited quantities, and once the particular pattern is sort of been sold out, they move on to a different pattern and give it a different name. And one of the things I think is very interesting about the Schon Design pens is that the actual pen, as far as I can tell, has no insignia or advertising or words that say anything about Schon design on it. And I think that's to create this very clean look, but sort of also speaks to the fact that this isn't all about ego, it's about making a beautiful product, very different from a lot of other pen manufacturers. Now, one thing that some people wouldn't like in a pocket pen is the fact that to take the top off and to make it into a long pen takes a bit of time. You know, you have to take the top off, then screw this back on, and you have the problem that if you have to put the pen down for a few seconds or minutes, then you have to unscrew it and put the top back on. And some people are using a pen for work. That is not so great for note taking. So that's something to keep in mind. This is I think, a very special pen. It's really, as I come back to it, it is something that delights me. But it's not necessarily the most, a pen design, as they would say, form following function, and therefore, is something that is made for, just the functionality of it. It is something that is just really beautiful, and it's a beautiful object, and yet does function really well. And after all, the other thing about these pens is that they're very well made, beautifully crafted, and they're meant to last a lifetime or more. There is no particular reason that they would break, or if you drop them, it's hard to damage them because they're so beautifully made. And the kind of design they are, which I think is interesting, is that they're simple, but they are not a kind of design that is fussy to me. A lot of modernist design is such that if you get just a scratch on a pen, I feel this with a lot of the Lamy more expensive pens, you've kind of marred this pen. But these pens, I think, are meant to last and to take on the quality of age. And that's something that the star of my collection is definitely this faceted pen one, and that costs more money to pay for this. But I really do like the way it feels in the hand. I'm not even sure how exactly they do this in some way with a lathe to get this beautiful patterning and the sort of sensuousness and physicality of on the metal in this way. And then I love this sort of candy, I think this one is called candy stripe pattern. I think that's really attractive. Just to compare it, and to make you realize that I do buy these pens. So here, just to compare it, is one of their full-size pens. And I have it here with the Monarch nib. This is one of the early versions of the Monarch nib, which actually fits just like a Jovo nib. So you can actually use their Monarch nib in other pens that will take standard Jovo housing, which I think is kind of interesting. And this is, you can post it, but it's a heavy pen to post, so it's not one that I usually post. This is the full-size pen that they have. Thinking about the full-size pen and the comparison with the pocket pen is, of course, the issue of how do you get ink into this pen when it's so small. And the answer, of course, are cartridges. So when you buy one of these pens, they send you some cartridges. Be careful about it. It's the same kind of cartridge that would work in a Kaweco will work in this pen. You really want to get European standard cartridges. And then I think when they send you the pen, too, they send you some blank cartridges that you can eyedropper if you want to use your own particular ink. And I've gotten pretty good at doing that. It can be a little tricky, and sometimes you get ink on your fingers, but that does work perfectly fine as a way to get ink into this. I mean, the advantage of a full-size pen is, of course, it will use a converter, and these pens don't. And also, of course, another disadvantage of a pocket pen is that even with a standard cartridge, it's not going to last tremendous long time. So, you have to sort of decide about, the utility of the pen, how you're going to use the pen, whether this is something that you use just for signatures. If you journal a lot and write pages and pages, then you're going to want a full-size pen that uses a standard converter. How does it write? Well, pretty well. This is Schon DSGN Pocket 6. And it's Momagy, which is from Pilot ink. It's Rhodia paper. Now this is a blank cartridge that I filled with ink. So instead of taking just buying cartridges, I have some blank cartridges, and I've used an eyedropper to fill it, which can be a little tricky, but I've gotten quite good at it. And and it writes nicely, but it's a Jovo medium nib, and there's no flex to it, but it's nice and smooth. So I would say that my issue with this pen is that with this kind of a section, a metal section, is that it's a little slippery. And I feel this way with all metal pens. I feel this way certainly with the Kaweco Sport that I have in brass, which is much heavier pen. So you have to keep that in mind. If I were myself designing this, I would probably have a slightly longer section, and I really like the version of this pen that is like this, that has the brass rib section, because I think it works much better for holding your hand when you write with this. Now, keep in mind that to me this is much more pleasant. Now, keep in mind that you can purchase from Schon DSGN different sections. I didn't see on their website, the one thing that I would suggest that they have is that they make a plastic section to go with the pen. Now, that probably bothers them, that idea, because they are really known for their wonderful pens that are made of and engineered to be made out of metal. But I think if you combine this with a plastic section in the front, it would be much more comfortable. And then, and it could be, for example, black, let's say, black plastic, or resin, as they like to say in fountain pen world. But anyway, that's my suggestion. Maybe that is even a possibility they have, or they're thinking about it. But I would encourage them to think about doing sections that are more comfortable and less slippery, and then you could have sort of the best of both worlds. Anyway, I really salute Schon DSGN for making pens that really don't look like anybody else's pens, and they're really nice people. When you see them at fountain pen shows, talk to them. They really enjoy showing off their pens, and support them by buying the work that they do.